Okay, solving by factoring. First key thing is to ask yourself, is the lead coefficient a 1? If it is, this is the easiest kind of factoring that we do. Two numbers that add to give me the middle, multiply to give me the third. In this case, that would be a positive 7 and a negative 3. Okay. Since we're looking for solutions, the question is, what could make this part 0? Well, that would be a negative 7, because negative 7 plus 7 is 0. What would make this part 0? Well, positive 3, because 3 minus 3 is 0. So those are the solutions. Okay? What happens when that number in front is not a 1? What happens if it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, something else? Well, here's where we get into a bunch of different options. Okay, we can do guess and check. We can do the universal method, as some call it. It's kind of up to you. In this case, I actually think that guess and check won't be too bad. I'll actually show you both methods just so you can choose. But the reason I say guess and check won't be too bad is because I know that this has to be 3x and x. And I also know that the numbers that go here and here have to be factors of 7. Well, 7 is only 1 times 7. So there's really only two options here. Our only two options are either to do 1 and then 7, or 7 and then 1. Well, it's going to be 1 and 7, because the guess and check part of this says, okay, if you think about the word FOIL, I know that the F works because 3x times x is 3x squared. I know that the L works because the last is 1 times 7, which is 7. The part that I don't know about is the inside and the outside. I need those to multiply and then add together to give me 22. Well, 1 times x is 1x. The outside is 21x. And when I add those, I get 22x's. And that's why I know that that works. Okay? That's the checking part of it. Now remember though, we are solving here still. Okay, this is still solved by factoring. So in that case, we have now factored it. I want to know what makes this part 0. Well, I do 3x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, so 3x equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 3, and I get x equaling negative 1/3. Here, I get x equals negative 7. Those are my two solutions. Okay. Now the other way, the universal method, which I talked about briefly, I'll go ahead and we'll do it that we'll factor it that way too, for those of you that got in the habit of doing that, because it's a good method. Okay. In order to do that, you multiply the first times the third, which in this case is a 21. You want factors of 21 that add to give you the middle number, which in that case would be 21 times 1. You do your double bubble using those two numbers. So we have x plus 21 and x plus 1. We then divide by the lead coefficient, which in this case is a 3, both parts. Reduce the fraction if you can. We know 21 divided by 3 is 7. If you cannot reduce the fraction, take the denominator, move it in front. This becomes 3x plus 1. And you see that although they are in a different order, these two are factored the same way. Okay? It's okay that they're in a different order. Now I still need to go through and find my solution. So this solution is negative 7. This solution, as we found before, is negative 1/3. Universal method, guess and check method. Quadratic formula. Well, first things first, make sure that this thing is equal to 0. So I got to start by adding 9a. So I get 2a squared plus 9a minus 56 equals 0. Quadratic formula, x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this case, I'm going to go with x equals the opposite of b. Well, here's your a, here's your b, here's your c. Opposite of 9 is negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 56 all over 2 times 2. Now, I told you before, I'll tell you again, I think it's a good idea to take this part here, kind of go off to the side and simplify that, and then bring it back to the rest of the stuff. So I know I'm going to have x equals negative 9 plus or minus something all over 4. But that highlighted part reduces to the square root of 81. Wow, I got to go to my calculator to figure that. Basically 8 times 56. Well, let's go 56 times 8. That's a 6. So 48. 4, 8 times 5 is 40, so that's plus 448. So that's the square root of 529. Yuck. Alright, I'm going to grab my calculator here real quick. Okay, and it turns out that the square root of 529 is actually 23. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to split this thing up, and I'm going to have negative 9 plus 23 divided by 4, and I'm going to have negative 9 minus 23 divided by 4. Well, negative 9 plus 23 would be a 14/4, which reduces to 7 halves. And over here we have negative 9, that'd be negative 32/4, which is negative 8. And those are my two solutions. Okay, and one last one here. So I have x equals the opposite of b, so that would be a positive 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 4 squared, minus 4 times a times, now in this case my c, once I rewrite this, is 3k squared minus 4k. I subtract 39 from both sides to get this thing equal to 0. So for that reason, my a is 3, my b is negative 4, and my c is negative 39. And that's all over 2 times 3. Okay, so I have x equals 4 plus or minus something all over 6. I'm going to go to my highlighted part here. I'm going to go over to the side. And I know that negative 4 squared is 16. And I have a negative times a positive times a negative. So that's going to be a positive. And I got to go to my calculator to do 12 times 39. 12 times 39. That's 468. So that's the square root of 484. Back to my calculator. Square root 484. 22. Worked out nice for us again. So we have x equals 4 plus 22 over 6 and 4 minus 22 over 6. 4 plus 22 would be a 26 over 6, which would reduce to 13 thirds. Over here we have a negative 18 over 6, which would reduce to a negative 3.